state. And when you pick up Islamic writers, when you look at the footnotes of Yusuf Ali, or you pick up such works as by Montgomery Watt on Muhammad's Mecca, getting particularly in pre-Islamic periods, or the Frenchman Alfred Guillemette in his book on Islam, or you can pick up, I don't care if you go to the, as I did, the Encyclopedia of Islam, there's various editions, the Dictionary of Islam. I mean, you go through all of the standard reference works found in any university. And they're written by secular people, by Jews, by Christians, by Muslims, but they're the encyclopedias, the dictionaries. They all would simply state, well, look, for example, here you have two words, the Safa and the Marwa, and you say, well, what are these words? They're not explained. Well, they didn't need to be explained because people would understand what they were because they were already familiar with those two words. And thus, when we turn to pre-Islamic pagan Arab history, we find that these words referred to two hills which were part of the ritual, and on top of each hill they had an idol. Now, some scholars say there was a male idol in one and a female idol in the other. Others say they were the two female idols of the two of the daughters of Allah. But nevertheless, they were idols, and they ran up one hill and ran down the other. And this was part of their pilgrimage. And then Surah 2, 158, goes on to speak about going around the Kaaba. Now, why would they go around 7 times? Well, scholars have debated it had to do with an astral religion, just like you have in astrology, the 7 houses, you have the horoscopes, the 7 planets, things of that nature. But the pagans had their reasons that they were running around the Kaaba. And you see, these things are mentioned not as something new, but as something that was already there. The Kaaba itself was a pagan temple. It was built, as a matter of fact, by Muhammad's great-grandfather, Qusay. It was filled with 360 idols. Even the Hadith, Al-Bukhari's Hadith states 360 idols. And it was with the center place of the black stone, the meteorite, and part of it, of course, was they kissed and caressed the black stone. Now, in this particular work here, and elsewhere, it says the stones, which were viewed as deities by the pagan Arabs, they believed by kissing and caressing these stones, such as the sacred black stone, they could somehow gain forgiveness of sin and gain sanctification by this pagan ritual. Now, it is thus clear to all scholars that the pagan Hajj, with all of its rituals, to quote one scholar, were taken up wholesale and placed into the Quran, and hence ended up as an essential part of Islam. The Encyclopedia Britannica says that the reason behind this was purely financial. The Meccan merchants with the pagan pilgrimage, they had the concession for the Days Inn and the Motel 6 and the restaurants. And if Islam were to say, if Muhammad was to say no more pilgrimage, what would they do with all the restaurants and the hotels that was set up? So the Encyclopedia Britannica says the reason that Muhammad gave in, and even while it was yet a pagan ceremony, remember that the idols were still there, gave the command to do this, as Yusuf Ali points out, was that the Meccan merchants would never convert if it meant the end of their business and their livelihood. So the Hajj was retained, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica and to other authors, as an inducement financially to keep people involved in the conversion process. The same thing has to do with the fast. Now, the fast of Ramadan is introduced in the Quran, not as something new, but it states, again in Surah 2, this time verse 183, O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you. Now, as you look in the Torah, and you look at the writings of the Jews, nowhere will you find any evidence, either biblical or extra-biblical, for the idea of, for a monthly period, fasting during the day. It was not a Jewish ceremony. Jewish scholars have pointed this out. You can go to any Jewish, the Judica, encyclopedia, whatever you want. The Christians, you can look in the New Testament. No one has ever found any passage in the New Testament that talks about having a month-long fast during the day with the feasting at night, etc. That's not there. You can't find this rooted in Judaism. It's not rooted in Christianity. But when you go to the pagans, there you find, according to Muslim scholars, to Yusuf Ali, according to all of the standard reference works, they point out that the pagans did indeed have such a fast. And it was at an appointed time. So in the Quran, when it says the fast is to be done at the appointed time, it means the appointed time that the pagans had for it. It began by the appearance of the crescent moon and ended with the reappearance through the whole cycle. And thus the fast itself was not something revealed from heaven. It was a pre-Islamic pagan fast. It was part of the pagan religion that involved the worship of the sun, the moon, the stars. It was what we called with the Sabians an astral religion. Now again, this is something that Bob Morey never invented. This is why it will be ludicrous if someone says, well, I'm going to have a session where I'm just going to attack Bob Morey and say he hates dogs and he spanked his children 3 times and he's just mean. Ladies and gentlemen, I could be the most wicked man that ever lived and still tell you the truth. That's why ad hominem arguments really don't work. I was preaching at a church in Los Angeles, and some of our Muslim friends got out of hand and began to shout, racist, racist, racist. Now, I'm in a black church, and my black fellow preachers were scratching their head, but nevertheless I said, sir, if I were the greatest racist who ever lived, could I still be telling you the truth about this point of history? See, we're talking about what we call in logic a question of fact, which is not the same thing as a question of relevance. A question of fact means either the pagans did this or they didn't. Either the encyclopedias and the standard works say this is true or they don't. That's a question of fact. Did this happen in history before Muhammad? Did he grow up in a religion that had the pilgrimage, in which people faced Mecca, in which they prayed toward Mecca, and on down? And if the answer is yes, that's one issue. Now, if someone says, well, I don't care, that's the question of relevance. You cannot refute the facts of history by the shaking of the head that you don't care. Now, someone can say, well, I don't care. Well, that's fine. That's a question of relevance, a question of significance. I'm dealing with questions of fact, and then I draw my own conclusion based on those facts, not based on circular reasoning or something of that nature. Let us turn to another example that I think that would be helpful for us, and that would be the symbolism of using the sun, the moon, the stars, that is found throughout the ancient world, but in particular to deal with the issue of the symbolism